Hello, everyone. It's Michelle Patterson here with Angel Souls. And as promised, I brought a very special guest today, George Koury. He is a psychic medium, angel messenger, an activist, and all around great guy. So I am so happy to have you here, George. Welcome.
Hi, Michelle. I'm thrilled to be here with you.
I'm so glad we could work this out.
Sorry?
I'm so glad we could work this out.
Yeah, I'm thrilled. And thank you for inviting me on.
Absolutely. It's an honor. So let's start off by first just making it clear that today we want your questions from the audience, but we're not going to be doing personal reading questions. Okay. So we're going to lay that down. And then from there, I guess we could kind of explain. Shall we tell them about our tech run through?
Yeah, the mini train wreck.
So I got kicked off twice from Google Hangouts when we were rehearsing. And the first time we thought it was really funny. And then the second time it happened was like really serious. Okay, now wait a minute. We got to get a plan here in case this happens. So if that should occur, you know, such is life. One of us will keep running till the other one can get back in. So,
yeah, so
anyway.
if there is a glitch, just stay on. Don't log out. Stay on. We will keep the ball running somehow.
That's right. That's right. So, George, why don't you tell us some of the things that you are doing with your life, like the activism? What's going on with that?
Well, I started when I was 16 years old. I've been an activist since I was 16. At 16, really working with, it was the time of the Vietnam War. And I feel to this day that it was an unjust war. I want to clarify that I am in no way criticizing our veterans. I feel that they need our support. I've also campaigned for veterans to get the kind of benefits and care that they deserve that right now are still sorely lacking here in the U.S. So my opposition is not with them in any way. It was really with what I felt was an unjust war. I worked with an organization called the War Resisters League, which was started, I think, during World War I. And since then, I've worked on human, animal, and environmental right issues. And there really hasn't been a day when I haven't worked on something. During the 80s, when AIDS first came to the forefront in the news, I worked with organizations in and around New York. There was a time, you're too young to remember, but President Reagan was stunningly silent on the issue of AIDS education and research. He couldn't even say the words, AIDS or HIV. And so I was part of several organizations that did work to really push the envelope and force his hand on that. And most recently, I've been working in New York State and with other organizations around the country on the hydrofracking issue. If your listeners are not familiar with it, I would urge you to become educated. It's being done in many states here in the country. It's a very dangerous process that permanently poisons our water supply. And I feel that the more that we educate ourselves, the more we can see that this process is kept out of the U.S. I mean, it is here now, but we can help it, prevent it from growing. And that's really the
beautiful
of it. Yeah.
And how does that play into, having that as your base and your belief system? How does that maybe inform how you deal with clients, or, how you show up for a client? What is your approach with your work?
Well, my philosophy is based in part on an African proverb that says, when you pray, move your feet. What that means is, the Dalai Lama has said this many times, prayer is not enough, especially not now. We need to take action. And so I've always felt compelled to take those steps, because in many ways, the spiritual path, as you know, in terms of, I'm sure you've experienced, in terms of receiving information from the angels, as you do so beautifully, can be somewhat passive. And the activism is like the direct opposite. It's very active. I think it's both yin and yang, and that it involves compassion, but it also involves the yang energy of taking action, making steps, and being vocal for all the kinds of injustices that are in the world. I don't know if I even answered. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, you did. So when you, let's get a little more specific. Let's say you're one-on-one with a client and they want you to just do a psychic reading, as people might expect a psychic reading. We can certainly talk about that if you would like. How do you get them to get active in their own lives?
Well, I'm very fortunate, and I've been my very first service that I started performing outside of the activism were tarot readings, and the reading with the angels came later. But I just found that over the years, the clients that I've had are people who are self-starters. They tend to be self-aware and they want to make change. So that's not really a problem for me. If we identify something in a reading, I know that 90% of the time they're going to go home and they're going to work on it. You know, I have something I call the auto mechanic syndrome. I'm sure you've experienced this, where people say, well, I'll drop myself off and pick myself up an hour later and you fix me.
Yes,
You know, right?
yes. Especially with angel work, there's that expectation that they're going to come in, sort of get refueled. Their frequency is going to be raised because we're dealing with these angelic beings, and then they're just going to be fine, and that's it.
So can I ask you a couple of questions?
Of course.
You're absolutely one of my favorite people in this spiritual arena and really in the world. And I've always loved the angel work that you do. I feel there's a cord of truth with every reading I've ever experienced you do. You've also done some private readings for me, which have been immensely helpful. My question is, how did you get started in this? What was it that awakened you or opened your eyes to this path?
Well, first of all, thank you so much. And actually, when I tell people be careful with psychics, and then I always follow that up with, there's some that are really, really good that I love and adore. And when I say that, I'm usually talking about you. So I have that
Well,
same.
your check is in the mail.
There's no check, guys. There's no check. No, I really mean that. I really trust, how you approach your work, your energy, and it's so beautiful. It really is. As far as how I got started with this, this was something that happened. It's a typical story. I could do this when I was a kid, but didn't really tell anybody. I thought it made me weird, so I just tried to pretend like it wasn't happening. But as a child, I would do things like astral project. I would go out of my body, those sorts of things. More recently, so this was about, coming up on the 2012 era, so it kind of started in 2008. There was this sort of I want to call it like a calling home. And this energy started to come up again. Initially, I pushed it out. And then I kind of had no choice. I mean, the angels always give you a choice. They don't interfere with your free will. But there were just so many things trying to get my attention. And I knew that. It started sparking this understanding. I'm supposed to come back to this, and I'm supposed to dive in. I'm supposed to have a platform. I'm supposed to be doing this for other people. And I should tell everybody, I went in kicking and screaming because as a human, I had my own things to heal around patterns with how I interact with other people, what I open myself up to, what the outcome would be to my detriment sometimes, in very, very bad situations. And so the very thought of opening myself up to people who are going to come in with their questions, and there's going to be all this responsibility to be there for them. So there was a part doubt going on there. I don't know if I'm good enough to do this. I don't know that I really know what I'm doing. And then there was this part, just incredible fear of not being able to sustain myself in that kind of work. A lot of people know I'm one of the few, I don't know, maybe readers in total that has a completely digitally based business. There are a lot of reasons for that. I can actually read just by having someone remotely, by having someone's energy come through. But like I said, there are a lot of reasons for that. But that's one of the biggest ones. It was just initially my fear. I really did not think that this was going to take off. I thought it would just be something that I did for a while to sort of appease whatever this energy was that was coming in and asking me to do it. And here we are. I think it's what, 6 years later, and I'm still at it. So
It's amazing. I know you have a vast reach, and in addition to that, the quality of your work is always there. Like, you show up 1,000%. My question about that is, how do you care for yourself? I'm sure that there are a lot of people on this call now that work with others, either psychics or mediums or angel communicators. Do you have any? I'm interested in your process and any tips you could pass on to the rest of us.
I will be very honest. Sometimes I don't take care of myself. I find that a lot of people, I'm sorry. I know, but if I'm being completely honest, sometimes, part of that is just if you're working for yourself and you don't have a staff, which I don't, it can be very hard to just keep up with the day to day. But when I do start to feel, your body, your mind, your heart, your soul will give you the reminder, all right? Like you're not feeling like agitated or not feeling as connected, you know what I'm saying? And that's usually the time where I go, okay, I need to do a little bit of the spiritual practice for myself. So usually for me, it starts with a walk outside. That is so simple, I know, but yet it's so effective. It's just something about feeling the sun on my face, breathing in. It doesn't even have to be any kind of like complicated meditation or whatever. It's just getting outside and getting some fresh air. And then I spend a good deal of time. Sometimes I'll take entire days off and do my own consciousness work. Obviously, we're always doing that, but this is a time, it's like a sacred time between me and God. And so we spend the whole day together and just in that energy, not just fit in between in a 10-minute meditation, but really connecting in. So that's another thing that I do, and having fun. This is important. Having fun. I was just telling you before we got on the broadcast that I went to Santa Fe, hopped in the car. I just needed to get away for a little bit. I tried to film some videos there. We'll see if they turn out. But, I just went for a change of scenery. I think that's really important too. And hanging out with friends, making time for friends. When I think there's, if I may here, just for a second.
No, please.
Yeah, I feel like there's this mentality or this sense about the calling that we get when we're spiritual practitioners, that we, it's almost like a codependent kind of thing where it's like our worth is based on how well we can be there for someone else. And I know people know that, but sometimes just having it reflected back to them just once more can make them stop. And, no, you don't have to do 10 more readings today if you've already done 20 of them. You can say, no, I'm sorry, you're going to have to wait until next week because that's the next slot I have. If you're somebody who does that kind of healing work or messenger work and you schedule, it's okay to give yourself the time. It's okay to say no to people. And that's the other thing, that I think a lot of us don't do that enough. We don't set those boundaries.
It's a tough lesson. So you're in Sedona right now?
I am.
Nice. Big. Very nice.
Thank you.
I like those curtains for my living room.
The what?
I like those curtains for my living room.
Yeah, these are pretty.
And actually, in your suitcase on the way out.
Yeah, sure. I'll just rip the whole thing, the whole window treatment. I'll just take it down. But right below that is the rocks. We are in a very sacred place right here. We're actually being cupped in the energy.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah. I gotta be honest with everybody right now. This is my first time in Sedona. I've heard how people react sometimes when it's the first time. And I gotta say, I had some weird stuff happen as soon as I got into Sedona. I was feeling a little buzzy. It wasn't until I got to this exact location that I started to feel okay and feel balanced. But like trying to come in was kind of wild. But yeah, wow. I'm in Sedona. Yeah. Did you have any other questions for me, or can I ask you more things?
You can ask whatever you want, and I'm sure I'll have others for you.
Yeah. So talk to us about how you perceive angels. This is one of the things I wanted to just like hop in and get to.
My very first experience of a spiritual nature was at 5 years old. It was a time when my parents were having a lot of financial problems. There was constant arguing in the house. and I would retreat to my room. I didn't realize at the time, but I would go and meditate. I would just sit quietly on the floor, and I know now that that's what I was doing. One night, I drifted off to sleep. My headboard would face out the window. It was a full moon, and the moon changed into this form. It looked like an outline of a person made of white light, and started to communicate with me. It didn't last long, maybe 5 minutes, but this being eventually came into my room. We had an exchange, a dialogue, and to this day, it has, that one experience has brought me strength, encouragement, upliftment, and wisdom and insight. I know now that that was my prime guardian angel. So it's all, and since that time, I work with them almost every day. So in terms of the way I perceive them, it's often as bodies of light and color.
Me too, actually.
That's most often how I experience them. Sometimes, if that's when I'm sitting and working with someone or in a quiet meditative state. If I'm out in the world and doing other things, driving, shopping, I will hear them in my inner ear. And sometimes, um, objectively, out in the, that doesn't happen too much, but most of the time it's in the inner ear. And I'm not a medication.
So you're more clairaudient and clairvoyant, I guess.
My predominant channels, the strongest ones are clairsentience and clairaudience.
Okay.
And the clairvoyance is around the third. But with the angels, the clairvoyance comes very quickly and very easily, as opposed to departed loved ones.
Yes, so you do that kind of work as well, correct?
Yes.
The psychic medium.
So after my initial experience with the angel, I had some others that where I came close to death many times, and angels showed up at the 11th hour. Say, not now, it's not your time yet. And as I continued to read the cards, the tarot cards, these were mostly psychic readings, people dealing with day-to-day issues. Eventually, their departed loved ones would show up in the readings, and that I would say happened last, after the cards and the angels, the departed loved ones coming through. And so it's basically those. In terms of the spirit world, those are the two arenas that I spend the most time in, communing with the angels and departed loved ones.
What is the feeling there? What's the difference? Can you articulate that? If there is a difference for you?
Oh yeah, definitely a difference. With departed loved ones, the energy feels a little more dense, because they're closer to the earth plane. With the angels, it feels like a very expansive energy, very light, very expansive. And I know that you sense the difference for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
I get asked that a lot, so I wanted to get your take on that as well. And maybe if you could, along that line of questioning, if you can explain to people what you would say about how to tell the difference. You kind of touched on it, but what happens if someone is, let's say they're grieving and they want so badly to believe that their grandmother's right next to them, but maybe it's an interloping soul or something that's posing as their grandmother? What would you say to those people to be cautious of?
Here's my viewpoint on it. I have some controversial thoughts and beliefs about the spirit world. I personally don't believe that there is anything in the spirit world that can harm us. I feel that, I know you didn't ask me this, but let's take it to an extreme. We talk about devils and demons. I really feel that what those are collective beliefs that groups of people have here. For example, people who practice various religions for centuries, there's a cumulative energy. And I believe that if there's a group energy that believes, let's say, in Satan or the devil, some energy will be created on the etheric plane, where if you are sensitive and you can perceive, you'll see the devils and demons. But I just, again, this is my personal belief. I'm not asking that any of your listeners embrace this, check it out for yourself. I believe that they're not looking at a real entity, but the result of the collective energies based upon people's beliefs. So when somebody works with me, what I explain to them, number one, is if you have ever loved anyone, which will include animals, you have a heart connection with that person after they've passed. You always have the ability to connect with their consciousness and their soul. That is a tie that can never be broken. So if somebody comes, I'll when they're interested, I will teach them some simple processes to do that. The one caution that I have is I don't like people coming back unnecessarily, and creating a dependence upon me or anyone. So what I tell people is, if you're coming for spirit communication, come once, maybe twice a year, but no more. No more.
I
And
agree.
also with the angels, same thing. It's like, when you've worked out the issues that we've talked about in this session, then you can come back, but not every few weeks. Not healthy.
Right. And again, you touched on the whole dependency thing, but there's also, you need a little time to work out what you've been told. Right. So I find that in my readings, when, if I've had clients come, they'll put one in every few days even.
Wow.
And I know, and I've cut them off and said, I know you get like a little hit off of this, and we could get into that deeper discussion if you want, but getting that spiritual hit. But really, you're supposed to be taking what they're offering you as guidance and implementing that for yourself. We're all here to emulate creator by co-creating our own existence. So it can't be this, okay, now what do the angels say? Okay, now what do the angels say? Well, they say the same thing as a few weeks ago, right? You're still
and you have lottery numbers for me.
Right, the lottery numbers. That one cracks me up. I'm like, honey, don't you think I would have asked that already? If they were going to give those out, I would have collected mine already. No, it doesn't work like that.
Yeah, I always say that, if I could get them, I'd be on the beach in Tahiti with an umbrella drink. So.
Exactly. So can you talk, I love that conversation. Can we talk a little bit more about what you have seen your clients do with angelic energy? How do they interpret it, and what do they, does it help them, or do they?
To be honest, I found that it's not everybody's thing. For example, a lot of people associate angels in the West with Judaism and Christianity. And as you know, many people, I don't feel so much with Judaism, but with, some of the Christian churches here in the US, they've been gravely harmed and abused. And so there's a barrier there, and it's very understandable. So some people are not open to working this way. But I find if anybody who is open to taking self-responsibility, this can be a tremendous, just a tremendous resource. You know what I say to people, Michelle, is that the angelic realm is the universe's largest collection of unemployed, because most people they don't access it. Some people will go their entire life without reaching into that realm. And my view is, you can do things the hard way, but if you had a possibility of doing things in a way in which your path can be made easier and more joyful, why wouldn't you take it?
Yes. Or just feeling comforted, not coddled, but comforted along your path.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And the angels are really good for putting lessons in front of you. And let me explain that. I don't mean that in like they'll drop a huge obstacle in front of you to just test you and make you crazy. But if something isn't right for you, they will definitely put things there to help illustrate the energy that they're trying to get across to you. And I find that when people, and this is something it's like what you said, it's like the most unemployed group out there, right? But when people understand, okay, there isn't an energy out to get me. This is trying to show me something, especially if you see it over and over and over again.
Yes.
They help out really in that way. I find it's a very common way that the angels try to get through to people. If you have some bit of, and people deal with this a lot. So let's say someone has an abuse pattern, okay, or they're allowing a certain amount of abuse, or whatever that is, and they keep seeing examples of it. Now, it might not just be the obvious one where it's somebody in their own world, but rather they read about it or they see it on TV. It's just constantly in their face. If people would just realize to stop and take a look at that and ask that deep question, or even tune into your guardian angel and say, okay, what are you trying to tell me? I do it all the time. What are you getting at here, angels? Just get to it. So, and then if I just sit with it for a little bit, the understanding will come. Doesn't mean that you're going to be perfect. Doesn't mean that you stop all of your patterns, but you're one step closer to shifting that energy. And therefore, I think, in a manner of speaking, shifting your attraction point as well. That understanding can make you very aware, so that if somebody is, that's how the angels work with us. So if another example is coming in, you can go, oh, nope, I see it. No, thank you. I'm going to move on and be good to myself, or something along those lines. But do you find that to be true in your work, where people, they tend to ignore the patterns or maybe things that angels are trying to put in front of them?
Well, my awareness is that when people come to me, they've temporarily lost objectivity or a sense of vision of where they are. And so part of my responsibility, through whatever vehicle, to point that out for them, hold that vision temporarily until they can assume it again for themselves. So yes, absolutely. Amen.
And well said. That's a perfect way of putting it too. Definitely. So what I want to just talk all things angel. I'm actually really fascinated. I think you do group readings sometimes, right?
Yes. The group readings are 90% mediumship readings. I do these at small theaters throughout the country. I travel back and forth across the states, and sometimes known as galleries. I've played for audiences as small as 30 and as big as 350. And we're basically doing group readings, but we're bringing through their departed loved ones. I tend not to combine now communicating with angels and departed loved ones in the same session. The reason is the energy is a little bit schizophrenic for me. And if I were to do, I can do it, but if I were to do a whole evening, I'd have to sleep for a week after. Mm-hmm. The analogy I use is, if you imagine a giant office building, the top floor are the angels and the ground floor are departed loved ones. Not because one is better than the other, just a different level of density and vibration. If you can imagine going from the ground floor to the top floor and back and forth for a couple of hours, at the end, your mind is going to be like, shredded cheese.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I have my specialty. People will ask me to bring in their loved ones, but the way I approach it is usually through their guardian angels. So letting them bring them forward, because and I would love to hear what you have to say about this, but I feel, and what I've sensed, and when these moments have happened in our reading, sometimes it's not in the person's best interest to hear from that person, whether it's going to keep sort of compounding their grief, yes, or it may not be good for the person on the other side either, because they got a whole thing now. They got a whole gig on the other side, right? So they're trying to, do their thing. So do you find that to be true? Do you ever kind of perceive?
Absolutely. I always take I believe that just as we do here in the spirit world, our departed loved ones have free will. So in a private reading, I will combine bringing through the angels with the departed loved ones. But I find that when I work with the departed loved ones, I take my signals from them. And I really feel that I'm there to help to serve their need, as opposed to the need of the person sitting in front of me. The reason for that is, my belief is that the need of the person in the spirit world that person may only have one chance to come through and communicate something that could create profound healing and release. Whereas the person here always has that opportunity to communicate if they learn some simple techniques. So I will combine working with angels and departed loved ones in a private session. In a group session, if you have a couple of hundred people in the audience, everybody is pulling on you. And silently they're saying, come to me, come to me, come to me. It's a huge force. And if you're not balanced and grounded, you can get thrown off in a heartbeat. So I'm not even sure where I'm going with this, but my total focus when I'm working is either on the angelic realm and what they have to say, or the spirit world. And the sitter in front of me comes in, this is going to sound horrible, they come in third. It's not because I don't care about them, but very often, I'm sure you know this, people will come for a reading and think, I want to know about my job. Am I going to get the job? Should I leave this one? Should I accept this new invite that I have for a job? When the thing that they really need most is to start healing their relationship with their partner. And 99% of the time, the angels, departed loved ones, are going to point that out because they're coming from a different perspective.
Absolutely. When someone comes in, I find, and they're just willing to hear something, right? Yeah. And again, let's go with the example of asking about the job, and they'll come in and be like, well, the reason why you keep going after those jobs is because you have these relationship patterns over here. You're not doing the job that you want. You're doing it because it might impress your partner or whatever. I'm just giving like a silly example, but I do love, though, we could talk about free will here, because when somebody's open enough, sometimes I feel like, and tell me if this happens for you, I feel like they're asking something on the surface. There's like another question that comes through. And I learned a long time ago to tiptoe around that, because we all have ego consciousness going on. And because I used to say, I feel like you're actually asking about this. And that could get a really bad reaction. Do you find that to be true for you when you're doing readings?
Absolutely. Yes. Sometimes people can be very resistant. Mm-hmm. It's change, and it's looking at the truth, and it can be painful. It can be difficult. And I feel you do have to tread with discretion, be respectful of them, but at the same time, as I know you are, we have to be truthful.
Absolutely. And knowing too that if something is going to hit on their pain, they're not going to hear it. And then what's the point of the message? The whole idea for us to be here is to help get that message through. If, right. As you mentioned before, helping people get centered again if they're in a space where they're not, able to get the message for themselves just for that moment. Right. But yeah, that balancing, that can be a tough thing. And I don't know how you feel about this, but I was talking about my fear when I started the business. I never wanted anyone to be hurt. I didn't want anybody to walk away not feeling uplifted. And I think I was probably more shocked than anybody that when we work with angels, when you open yourself up to that and say, okay, I am here, I will do this with you. That honesty is everything. It's everything. And sometimes, yeah, like you said, we really have to be, well, of course, be respectful, obviously, but to really deliver it in a way that they're ready to take on. Otherwise, it just falls right off. Now they're mad. They might even walk away a little more closed than they, came in as, right? Or as we said, hitting up on some of those fears, even about what their perception of angels are, whether it's they're super, cuddly and sunshine and rainbows, or I'm scared of those because they, some artists really portray them as being scary, what have you. So how do you deal with that? How do you, with everybody's push-pull, as we know as readers, everybody has their perception of things. What do you tune into, and how do you assess that, and what do you have a way of bringing the client back to kind of be in their heart center?
I try to, no, well, I have a very simple problem. I just sit quietly with them before we begin the reading for about a minute. And I just invite them to sit with an open mind and heart. Invite your angels in. They're actually already there. And I just find in that space that it creates, there's a sacred circle that happens. And I just feel that I find that in that really beginning moment, people will relax. Even if they are, let's see, inexperienced with this type of session or work, eventually they'll see that, hey, this is cool. I know that people experience that with you. I've listened to your readings on your channel, even the ones that aren't for me, and I've had a number of readings with you, and I have never experienced a moment that didn't ring as truthful, and I've not experienced a moment in which your care and your love and compassion did not come through. And I just think it has to do with our intent. You know, if you set that intent, everything will work out. What is it? There's a phrase in the Bible, I know I'm going to butcher this, but in the Bible it says, when it's a quote attributed to Jesus, when two or more of you were gathered in my name, there I will be also. And I know I'll get cards and letters about this, but I really feel that what he was saying was that when two or more people come together with a common intent, something sacred is going to happen. Something special is going to happen.
Absolutely. First of all, thank you so much. You're so kind. Thank you.
No, it's true. I mean, it's true. You've been doing this for a long time. You've obviously polished your skills and the natural talents that you have, and it's something, because there's a lot of work out there that pretends to be something that it isn't. So keep going. Whatever you do, keep going.
Should we talk about that? Because I think nobody's talking about that, and maybe we should. If you're not comfortable, we can move on. But
No. You know what I find? I was one of the first Reiki masters here in the States, along with my partner. And you know, back in the day, we had to walk miles to school. We had to do a year in between levels, and we had to do X number of treatments and document them. And then it went, like many things that land here on our soil, it became very commercialized. And now what's happening with psychic work, mediumship work, angel readers, across the board, people will take a one-day course and then go out and hang out a shingle. And I have a mentor from England. Her name is Mavis Patilla. She's a wonderful, wonderful medium. She's been doing this for 50 years. And what she constantly tells people is, kids, don't be in a rush to get out there. You're going to hurt yourself, do the people you're working with a disservice. It's a lifetime of commitment and learning and growth for us as readers, practitioners. So she said, don't be in a hurry. Wait until you're really ready. And I think the best advice I got early on, when I started tarot, my readings were pretty horrible because I was self-taught. But after a while, I started to gain experience, and I came across the path of a really great reader. And what she said to me was, if you want to be great at this, do 100 or 200 readings for free before you start charging. And that will build your confidence, your ability to deliver, and then go on from there and start working. And I thought that was great advice.
That's beautiful advice. Absolutely.
What's your experience with this? What do you feel?
I agree with you 100%. Actually, I came in, we'll leave certain names out, I guess, but I came in a certain era where I feel like spiritual sidestepping and spirituality as escapism was really being sold or fed to people.
Wow.
I think that's just kind of where we were. I know I fell into it too, because you know what? It was a release from the pain. That wasn't the end all be all from it. I had to keep on, but that's what I came into this. That's the environment I came into. And so that was very difficult. First of all, banging up on people's expectation, right? Like I'm supposed to sit here and feed into whatever story they're telling themselves. And I want to make it clear, there are people that do resonate with some of the certain things that were being said back then. I'm not talking about those people. If that's you, fine. You creating that thought form, you know, it exists in some time and space, fine. But what I'm talking about people who are extremely vulnerable, scared, they're starving. They're spiritually starving. And so they would take any little bit of what they thought was nourishment at the time. And so these were the people that were going to these one-day courses and going, I was healed really quickly by one card reading, so I want to learn to do that for others, and then going out and marketing themselves. And in truth, this was actually being encouraged, the whole, and I think people meant well. I got to put that in there. I think they meant well by saying, don't doubt yourself. If you have this ability, you have this talent, go out there and do it. But again, yeah, it was like one day and people were out there telling other people how to live their lives. This is not work that, I'm just gonna put my opinion in there. This is not work that is always fun. It's not, I wouldn't use that word for it. It's a huge responsibility. It takes, and I'm honored to be able to do it for people. And I take it very, very seriously. And yeah, I encourage people to embrace their talents and abilities, but craft them. Make sure that you're not, flowing your own troubles in there or seeing the reading through your own lens and then offering that up. That, you're talking about giving free readings. That was something I had to learn very quickly, that the people I was reading for, I was giving them messages through my lens of them because they were people I knew, right? And so that was a big lesson, and it took years. It took years to be aware of that and to be willing to shift that, right? So yeah, now I feel like we've come forward from the 2012 era a little bit. I'm seeing some of that sidestepping, stopping. I think, one of the number one questions I get asked is, what is my life's path and purpose? And I think that is such a promising question because people are not only hearing that soul's calling, but they're willing to do something about it, right? So that's wonderful. But then what ends up happening hits up on that ego consciousness, and they think it's going to be dwindled down to a word, a title, a label. Just tell me what's the next box I'm supposed to exist in.
Right.
And I think now we're just evolving out of that. I want to come back to the one day thing here in just a moment, but I think we are evolving into, I don't have to label myself as one thing. I don't have to be shoved off into this area. I can get into my higher consciousness and I can create from that vast, God force, life force, whatever the heck you want to call it. But as a YouTuber, talk about this. As a YouTuber, I see a lot of people who, they're good tarot readers. I call them hook readings, and I think that they're different kinds of readings. They can be fun. Remember what I said, the real work that we do with spirit, it's love, it's peace, it's, sometimes delivering a truth that maybe someone's ready to hear or not hear, and we have to figure out how to do that. But these hook readings are we having a problem with sound here? Sorry if that's actually, there's a problem with sound on my end here.
I'm fine.
1 second here, there, okay. I think if a client knows what they're walking into with these hook readings, they're meant to dazzle you, they're meant to grab you, and if you get something out of it, okay. But have you seen any of that? Do you have an opinion around those kinds of readings?
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, it's a little bit of show business, a little bit of performance.
Yeah.
And some of those folks are good marketers, and they do know how to bring people in. And, as long as they're doing good work, I have no problem with it. But a lot of it is just for show. It's the sizzle without the steak.
Yes, exactly. Yes. And these YouTubers that are doing that, they're actually genius at for that platform, at what they're doing. Because one of the YouTube rules is to have a great title, right? To grab somebody. And I'm seeing it all over the place where it's like, he never forgot you. He never stopped thinking of you. He still loves you. All these things that I'm like, wow, that's kind of, from a YouTuber standpoint, you're on your game. Okay, that's pretty good. But then there's this other part of it of at least how my brain functions. What are people doing with that? Are they going to go in there and actually think that that is advice that they need to follow, or that person's actually reading for them? Do you think this is something that's going to continue, or do you think this is just a trend?
Wow, that's a great question. I think the larger thing which I was hoping we could talk about, is I really feel, not to be dramatic, I really feel it right now on the earth, not just here in the States, but around the world. We're in a battle of good against evil. And I really feel that it's a time when we're being given a choice whether we're going to participate or whether we're just going to sit back and let somebody else do it. It's a crucial time. And I think that this issue about the commercialization of self-growth, the spiritual path, is a symptom of what's happening on a larger scale. So I'm really hopeful. I feel that, you know, my work as an activist really taught me that the more we can educate people, even on one, like talk to our neighbors and do something to help open their eyes to something that's happening in the world. I feel that once people learn about that, they will start taking action. So I feel that that kind of energy is universal. It will go out like ripples on the water and impact everybody. So I'm not precisely sure I answered your question, or if I'm.
Well, I think the question is flawed because I don't know that we can actually give a good answer to it. I'm with you. I got hung on that part where, you know, there's like the good and evil thing going on. We were all just in many facets of life. We were heading in a good direction. Things were, you know, looked like there were some promising things happening in the world. And then boom, it was like everybody had to boomerang back in the opposite direction for a while. It's like exploring the opposite, right? That overcorrection that humans do. And I don't know. I feel like when I do readings for people and I'm connected into especially archangelic energy, the angels and archangels, they don't have an urgency. That's a human thing. They don't have egos. But if I have to take that energy and say it in a human way, there's this thing of, you know, it's time to really awaken, right? Again, that's still a very human way of putting it, but it's time to see that it's not, your life isn't an equation. It's not as if I do this plus this, I'm going to get this. And that's it, move along. It's organic. It's going to be messy. You know, I've said this before to people that you're designed to make mistakes. And I think people won't embrace that. They actually spend a lot of time fighting against those mistakes. But that's the very thing that gets you to your authentic voice. That's the very thing that makes you you. You know, if we just lived our whole life skipping through the meadow, imagine that's a movie and you had to watch that for 2 hours. No, thank you. And then to live it, right? So that's one of those things I'm finding that people are, again, it's this push pull. It's like, you know, they seem like they're starting to get it. We're all starting to get it. I do it myself. We're all starting to get it. And then we're just not. And then we're just sort of closing the door. Do you think that that might be an okay thing for our consciousness? Like, do you think that's kind of just a part of the process, or
what is part of the process?
Part of the process of starting to head in that direction and then going back to a very, very human way of looking at things, a very 3D way of looking at it, if that makes any sense. So I see people getting into their potentials. They start to open. You can feel their energy is lifted. And then by the time they come back to me, something may have happened and they close the door again. And now they're right back to where they started from, in sort of an old mindset. And again, that old mindset, people are snapping back to that, not just in spirituality, but in, like, you know, a lot of areas of life. Do you think that's part of the process?
Yeah, I do. I've asked the angels about this frequently. And the message I've gotten is that the monster is dying. You know, I think of like the Godzilla movies or Rodan destroying the city. And it feels to me like what is happening is that these old ways are really dying and the monster doesn't want to let go. The other part of that message that I've gotten is, you know, that it still does depend upon humanity. The earth is going to survive regardless. Earth is going to be here for quite a long time. As to whether we survive, I feel it's a question of how many of us are going to be willing to awaken, take responsibility and move forward. Having said all that, I really do feel hopeful. I really do.
Good, good. Yeah, I am too. I have my moments where I'm like, what just happened?
Oh, yeah,
If anything,
don't
we're
we
human.
all? Don't we all? Can I share a funny story with you? Oh,
Please do. Yes.
all right. This is you know that I started in show business. I was a professional circus clown for 20 years. And we're talking about, readers and this idea of going out before you're ready, hanging out a shingle. We had a gypsy family on the circus that took care of wardrobe, husband, a wife, and a son. They were very dear people. But at that point, I was reading tarot for everybody on the circus. We had it was at any time 200 to 300 people. And so I read pretty much everybody at one point or another. And we were in Dallas, the middle of summer during a transit strike. It was like 100+ degrees out. No buses, no taxis, no nothing. We park the circus train in the freight yards, which is at one edge of the city. And to get into the city, you would have to walk or take a taxi, considerable distance. So the gypsy family says to me, we know you're into this stuff. We have a great psychic that lives in the suburbs. Her name is Sister Rose. Now that should have been a tip off. They said, so they gave me her number. I call her. I walk through the city of Dallas. I'm practically dead at this point because it's so hot. I'm dehydrated. Knock on the door. This lady in black opens the door like this. There are all these little kids running around naked. She screams at them in Spanish. They go into a room. She closes the door. Come in, my son. The living room is empty except for a couch, coffee table, and shelves with statues of the saints and candles. And I didn't know any better. I was young and foolish. She sits down next to me, holds my hand, starts to go into this really phony trance, like heavy breathing. And she says, I see that you're going to receive a letter. It's going to bear you great tidings. Anything you've achieved in your life, you've achieved through the sweat of your own brow and the toil of your own 10 fingers. And I thought to myself, I could do better than this, blindfolded and gagged, with my hands and feet tied together. And in my mind, I'm thinking, when I get back to the circus train, I'm going to murder this family. I was plotting it in my head. So she goes through this whole reading, and at the end, she's in the trance. Tell me, my son, what do you do for a living? And I said, I'm a clown with Ringling Brothers Circus. And I swear, this is what she did. Do you know anybody who can help me publish a book about gypsies? And I said, no. And she went back into the trance.
Oh my gosh.
At the end of it, she says, I really like you, my son, but I see a dark influence over you. I have to do a healing for you or something dire is going to happen. I'm not going to charge you. I just ask that you cover the cost of the 7 candles that are here on the shelf. I said, sure, how much? He said, $500. Have a nice day.
What kind of candles are those? My gosh.
So I walked back through the city to the train. Family is there waiting for me, laughing their heads off. And we became buddies after that.
Oh my gosh. Well, I was telling you the story about I was in Queens, and this kind of gets into a conversation about whether we should be giving readings to people if they didn't ask for them, right?
Oh, yes.
And I was going through, I was on 63rd Drive walking home from the subway, and this woman came up to me and said, she just stopped me on the street and said, oh, you need to pay attention to your dreams. And it was all this kind of, that could apply to anybody kind of stuff. And then when she said, what do you do? And I said, I'm an angel medium. She just, same thing, like, oh, it's almost as if like she got busted or something, I didn't really appreciate her just coming up and she didn't really hook into my energy. She was pretending to hook into my energy. So there's a difference there. But what would you say about people giving readings to others who didn't even ask for one?
It's really tacky. It's really, you're invading somebody's space. Don't do it. Really bad. If they ask, beautiful. Yeah, I've been assaulted in the parking lot of a church. A lady came up to me and started reading me. I said, excuse me, have we met? I don't recall asking you for a reading, so thank you, but no thanks.
Right. Well, or even people who are readers and someone maybe has come and asked for a reading, doing angel work, the angels will not go against a human's free will. So if I'm doing, I'm sorry?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So if I'm doing a reading with someone and I feel that they have a block, clearly I will say, okay, I feel like there's a block here. It feels like it's around this, that, the other, but I won't go into that because they have it covered. It's like going into someone's house and going through their cupboards and saying, oh, what's this? What's this medication for? Or whatever. So I try to be very, very cautious with that. But I've seen some people purposely kind of dive into that just so that they can seem effective as a reader. Have you ever seen this?
Yeah, and I feel part of it, some readers, some people, as you know, are addicted to drama, and they like to like stir the pot and be dramatic. It goes along with readers who predict somebody's death, which I think is really very irresponsible. And that comes down, I feel, to proper training. I feel that those of us that do this work have a calling. We come into this life with these gifts and abilities, but I feel at some point, if we're going to work with others, we need to have a period of nurturing with someone who has gone before, done the work, is an expert, and knows the ropes, that can teach us, help to polish us. I feel that that's really invaluable. What do
Yeah,
you?
I agree. I agree. And to honor that person when you do find them.
Yes.
Because, as we have seen, some people go out there, maybe they get a different kind of success, and then the teacher kind of, maybe wasn't asking for any accolades, but still, we need to honor the people that teach us, because I really wish someone would have taught me a thing or two and maybe would have saved me some time. I would have loved that.
Absolutely. Well, you've done great, kid.
Yeah, you're sweet. Thank you. Thank you. Well, George, we're just about at an hour. Is there anything else that you want to talk
Oh
about?
my gosh! Wow.
I know it went by like nothing.
No, not unless you have any questions. I mean, I would like to give out, if I could, my contact info.
Please do. Yes, let people know how to get a hold of you.
All right. I just want to mention that I am going cross country in the States here, doing a live mediumship demonstrations. So if you go to my website, they'll all be under the events page. And there's always something happening. The schedule is really full and always rotating. So my website is spiritlovesyou.com. Again, spiritlovesyou.com. If you feel that you resonate with me, interested in my work, you can also click the link to like my Facebook page, because there are other events that might not be listed on the website. One other thing, I have a monthly conference call, which is always free, and it's sort of a worldwide healing meditation. We direct healing energy from the angelic realm to everybody on the call and their loved ones. It's very powerful. We've been doing it for about 2 years now. People are constantly calling and writing in about the profound changes that they've experienced in their life. So again, you'll get the access to that by signing up for my newsletter at spiritlovesyou.com.
Absolutely perfect. I love that. So let's get to the really casual part of this. So, because this is where everything could go wrong. Me trying to figure out where the comments are. Let's find them and see. Oh, we got lots of them.
Really?
Yes, we do. Let's see here. Oh my. Okay. Do you have a minute, George?
Absolutely.
All right. So a lot of people are just saying hello. Hi, guys. And please, everybody who's watching this, whether you're watching it live or later on, love to you, blessings to you. I hope something really amazing happens for you. And I hope that you can get in touch with your angels, your spirit guides. We even get a chance to really talk about spirit guides. But do you perceive them, while I'm looking at comments, do you perceive them as being the fourth dimensional beings that are just sort of like I don't know, kind of a more advanced fourth dimensional being? How do you take
Yes.
that?
And I also work with them actively.
Ah, very
Um,
good.
Mostly for my own. I work with them mostly for my own personal growth. So, for example, after I do a reading or a public demonstration or class, I'll sit with them and say, okay, how did I do? What could I have done better? Any suggestions for me? I don't tend to go to them for day-to-day things, but in terms of the spiritual work and my work with people, that's where I lean on them a little bit.
Yeah, my spirit guides, they really were the ones that helped me get comfortable and feel okay with coming back to um, that openness around spirit. And I had to kind of be wrenched open again. So yeah, and now that I work with angels so often, we've talking about what do I do for self-care. Sometimes I have to remind myself to go back and like maybe reconnect with my spirit guides and
Yeah.
just have a moment, just come on back. All
Uh,
right. So a lot of people are mostly just saying, well, I want to go back to this one. Um, my two favorite angel practitioners. That's from Amy Penterman. Hi,
oh,
Amy.
hi, Amy.
Thank you so much, Amy. You're so sweet. All right. Monica Kander says, thank you, George and Michelle.
Hey, Monica.
And Janice Miller says, what a wonderful experience to experience you live. It's cool, isn't it? I mean, there's a lot, as we know from our tech run through, there's a lot to be.
You should have been at the tech run through. That was quite something.
Oh my gosh. The first time that I got cut out, it was when we were talking about something, and later on we assumed like maybe we shouldn't talk about that. And maybe that the powers that be that like shut down. Oh,
They're watching you.
they're watching me. They're into my computer. So my sister Kim Kirshner says hello. Hi Kim, I love you.
Hello, Kim.
All right. Okay, I'm just looking and seeing if anybody has any questions. It's mostly just comments. Oh, here we go. Leonard Finotti. Leonard, if I'm not saying your name correctly, please forgive me. How do you ask an angel a question and receive a clear answer that I can understand, especially if it seems like my communication has stopped?
So, Michelle, are you still there?
Oh, I'm still here.
Okay, good.
All right.
I
Sorry, I didn't mean to go like radio silent on you. I was just looking at the comments. See, casual part of the program right here.
That's a great question. Michelle, do you want to go with that question?
Yeah. First, I kind of want to tune in to this question a little bit more with Leonard's energy a little bit. Not that we're doing personal readings, but I want to make sure I'm saying this. First of all, when you're asking a question of your angel, I think a lot of times people expect what they want to hear, right? And even if you say, no, I'm cool, I don't do that, we all do it, right? We all end up kind of filtering what's actually coming through. We jump to conclusions. I've done it myself, thinking that something's going to happen and then it doesn't. And here it was just wishful thinking, right? So we have to just acknowledge first and foremost that we're human and that can happen, right? But really, the easiest way to understand your angels is in a silent space, I want to say, a calm space. At least that's what's been working for humans right now, right? So, through meditation and not trying to put any sort of meaning on it, but rather feel it, because maybe you won't hear the message. That's the other thing. People just assume that they're going to absolutely hear their angel. I mean, maybe, but you might sense it. There might be something that sort of gets activated in you. There could be more of your light that comes forward, and you didn't really get an answer the way you might expect. But the next time you're in a certain situation, suddenly you're making different choices. Suddenly there's this, maybe even a gentle epiphany that happens. So, George, what would you say to that? How would you answer that?
I don't have anything else to add. I think you really hit the nose. There is actually another question here, if I could. This comes from Angel Scorp in New Jersey. I don't know if you saw that, Michelle, but basically it says, "Hi, is it true you can see an angel? My sister actually has pictures of angels and spirits hanging out in front of her house for several weeks. The pictures look very real." Okay, so Angel, here's the thing about this. I have been told in my work, and I feel that your sister is a great example of this, that at this particular time in our history, angels more than ever are coming closer to the earth because more people are awakening and want to do something to contribute. So the fact that your sister is getting these pictures, I feel that that's a line, that's a means in which she is accessing that realm. Perhaps those pictures will provide proof or help to spark something in other people's. I would encourage her to keep going. I feel that there is a project here for her. So keep going with that. And yes, absolutely, you can see your angels. So thank you so much for tuning in. I
Yes, thank you.
hope that's a help. Michelle, did you want to add anything?
Um, can you read it to me one more time again? I want to tune into the energy
Sure.
of the person
Is it
asking.
true that you can see an angel? My sister actually has pictures of angels and spirits hanging out in front of her house for several weeks. The pictures look very real.
So yes, especially if they're like light being kinds of things, that's not unusual. And usually it's because of there's like that willingness, to see them. So I think it does say something about the individual, anybody who ends up starting to see, sparks of light and what have you. I want to say absolutely, this is like your time to open up and to see that. Again, we want to be careful of going too far and just assuming like, you know, something like a flash on a camera, like something's happening with the actual camera, maybe, that can happen, but really you'll know the difference just by how it makes you feel. Right. So absolutely. And I think that this is, again, just something to keep flowing into. This is a very positive thing, and it'll probably happen more and more. We have this really great question here from Liz Power. I have believed in the spiritual world for my whole life, and especially the angel connection lately. Since I tried to strengthen my connection, my life has gotten completely horrible. Unusual? George, you want to start with that one?
First of all, I'm sorry that that's happening for you, and it's not that unusual. I went to Catholic school as a kid, tortured by nuns, and I always felt drawn to the saints, and I've read a lot about their lives, some biographies, some autobiographies, and one of the common things is as they started to reach a greater state of enlightenment or committed more to God or the spiritual path, with so many of them, their lives got temporarily worse before they got better. Um, in homeopathic medicine, they call it a healing crisis. So what you're going through is not uncommon. Uh, my sense for you is that it's going to lift. It is going to change. So I just want to encourage you to stay the course, stay connected with God or universal energy, whatever that power is for you, and the power of your own soul and your angels, of course. And I know that you're going to be fine.
That's beautiful. Liz, I want to add in there to look at what your definition of horrible is. Hang with me. It's not in any way, shape, or form to diminish what you're going through, honey. If I could hold you right now, I would. Okay. I know what that's like. I really do. I feel like sometimes when we start asking for that higher consciousness connection with these light beings, that whatever's not matching up with that starts to crack and break and fall away. And if you're really attached to it, you're going to feel pain from that going away. So some of it, if it's things that are happening to people you love around you, for example, yes, it's going to cause you some pain. But remember that they're on their path and they are doing what they need to do as a soul. But if there's things like, let's use an example of all of a sudden you get fired from a job. Yeah, I'm sorry too that happened to you. And yet I would also say congratulations, because now you just broke something and you left space for something else. I'm not trying to give you like a spiritual cop out kind of answer, but in simplest terms, I think sometimes the things that we see as like horrible, yes, it's causing you some sort of grief or whatever. So yes, it is a horrible thing, but yet there's probably some good reason why that needs to be cleared away, or it's trying to get you to see something. Basically. Do you see another question, George?
I'm looking. If I could, a quick shout out. I want to say hi to Sarah. Hi to Bridget, North Carolina. Much love to you. Let me just see here.
Yeah, we're just gonna do this, guys. This is just kind of how life goes right now. We just, we look away from the camera and we look at the comments and we just see what's up. Hello from North Hollywood, California. This is Cheryl Hegg. Hi, Cheryl.
Here's an interesting one from Alicia. Can I ask, what do the angels say about people that are narcissistic, and do they still help these type of people? Well, Alicia, here's my experience. Whether you're naughty or nice, the angels are going to help you if you reach out to them. and if you ask them for help, and if you're earnest about it. So as I'm connecting with you, I have the sense you've had a really harsh run-in or a relationship with someone who is really entrenched in narcissism. I would, for yourself, ask the angels to help you to deal with the aftermath and the repercussions of that, and they will. I've never seen them let me down or anybody that I know down. So reach out to them, ask them for help, be prepared to follow their directive, their instructions.
Absolutely. Remember that people that we define in human terms as narcissistic, they had some bit of trauma in their life as well. That's no excuse for how they then turn out and, whatever it is that they're doing, whatever it is that they're putting out into the world. It's just that's their reaction to their original pain, whatever that soul spark was. And instead of, some people go the path of codependency, right? So angels absolutely would watch out for narcissists as well, because they're still a human soul. They still are pure love. It's just maybe at times they choose to shut out that love and express in a different way. So I'm with George on that. Ask for healing for yourself, and to also see your patterns. All right, to see whatever you can pull from that, so that you can move away from that kind of energy. Right? If you get your lesson done, you can move away from it. I've lived it. I understand it, 100%. All right. So let's see here.
I do see a question from Bridget. If you want to take this. Hi, Bridget. When you send a prayer request to a loved one's guardian angel to watch over them during a difficult time, do they hear you?
Do the angels hear you?
Yeah.
Absolutely. When you're invoking an angel and some help for someone else, there's kind of a double thing that's going on there. Yes, the angels absolutely hear you. Yes, they will go and attempt to help that person. But you can't go against anybody's free will, right? So if they're not willing to accept the help, then it'll appear as if like maybe the angels didn't show up. Of course they did. But this beautiful second layer that's happening is you and your love and you wanting to send love to that person. So humans, we're a lot more powerful than we acknowledge. And so remember, just the act of you wanting to send an angel for someone, I think that's incredible. I think that's so beautiful. And there's a gorgeous energy that happens with that. George, you have anything to add?
No, beautifully stated.
Oh, thanks.
I couldn't have done better myself.
Awesome.
We have some more questions coming in here. Gosh, I just lost it. I'm sorry.
Yeah, there's so many.
I'm spazzing out here.
I'm so happy everyone is so engaged, guys. This is amazing. We'll find one. We'll find one. Here's one from Gary M. When sending light energy to others, will they receive it and will it help them as it's intended? So I think that kind of goes along that same line with the angel, asking an angel to go and be with somebody. So there's that. Let's see here.
Here's a question from Sam. When asking for yourself and for the others involved for healing and guidance, is this wrong even though you want to help the other person? It's a great question, Sam. I feel that not only for you, but for all of us in those situations, we really have to be honest with ourselves about wanting to impose or asking ourselves, do I want to impose my desire for that other person on them? Or am I really clear and open about asking for the highest and the best? I mean, I know in connecting with you that your intentions are pure, but I think a guideline that we all have to follow is to be clear that we're not attempting in any way to send a manipulative intent, like I want this for them or I want that for them.
That is such an excellent point. Excellent point. I've seen that a lot where people come forward and be like, can I get the angels to make that person stop doing X, Y, and Z because I don't like it? Right? So thank you for pointing that out, George. That's perfect. Oh, here's a mediumship question. Shall we?
From Find
Find
Your Sovereignty.
Is there a way to confirm if my paternal grandmother is supporting me? Oh, are you doing like a personal? Which I thought it was like asking us how mediumship works. Okay.
I can handle it in a general.
Okay.
So, is there a way to confirm if my parental grandmother is supporting me? Likewise, with someone that has passed, how do we ask for confirmation of their presence and support? This is from Find Your Sovereignty. This is a really great question, and the answer is it takes practice. There is a part of the brain that deals with imagination and is the same part of the brain that governs intuition and psychic perception. So, and this is a shameless plug. If you subscribe to my newsletter, you'll receive 2 free gifts. One is a book of angel prayers. The other is an audio on a simple process for contacting your loved one. And as I said at the beginning, if you have a heart connection with anyone that has passed, including animals, including let's say children, those who have taken breath or never taken breath, you always have the ability to connect with them on some level. Right? So I hope that's a help to you.
Beautiful. And thank you, Find Your Sovereignty, for your question. We have one from Laura Karowski. When invoking angels to help with certain situations, do we need to know the names of the angels? I understand the angels have certain assignments. Oh, may I begin with this one? That I'm so glad you asked this, because that again is such a human way of seeing the angels. The angels actually don't have a gender. They don't really need names. They recognize each other by, light frequency, that sort of thing. So they don't need it. That's for us because of our human consciousness. So we are very compartmentalized. It's just how we function. And so the names, that's for us, because I don't think we would be able to really take on, the oneness of all the angels, right? That would be very overwhelming for our density consciousness. So we get pieces, or maybe that's not the right way to put it. We get a layer of, let's say, an archangel, for example, and that archangel has a name. So that, again, that's just for our comfort. So to answer your question, do you have to know the name? I don't think so. George, how do you feel about that?
Well, I agree completely. I feel, we just call out from our soul and ask for what you need, and they're there. The names are nice. They can be, it might add another dimension of intimacy in your connection with them, but in order to be effective and work with them efficiently, it's not necessary.
Well said.
We're on the same page, lady.
Oh my. So we have, it looks like there's like 200 comments.
Oh my gosh.
So that's really okay. So that's beautiful. Thank you guys so much. Sorry, I'm like trying to say thank you and I skipped over that part and went back to the thank you guys so much. So Artistic Mom says, while it's taking care of my late mother, I saw an angel and wondered why it showed itself to me. So angels do that. This does get kind of into that personal reading kind of question, but just in general, if people are, especially if they're dealing with end of life kinds of things. And George, I cannot wait to hear what you have to say about this, but angels are absolutely present. And I think it's almost because of the shift that's happening for that soul that might be sick or passing over or whatever, that there's an openness there. And even someone who, is not passing over, something happens where they open up and for a moment you can see them, right? And then you kind of snap back closed and you go back to regular life, right? So yeah, I mean, absolutely. The why this angel would show, I don't know that angels can show themselves to you, of course. I just kind of feel like in this situation, you just happen to catch a glimpse, right? Because of the energy that could have been happening or, what have you. Again, it would take a little bit more to tune into that. But George, Do you have anything that you were picking up on around that?
Yes, I do. And again, without, because we're not really doing readings tonight, but just on the surface, tuning into your energy, I obviously can tell that you were at a time when you were very vulnerable, you were tired, and I feel that this angel showed up to say to you, "Hey, you're not alone. We're here to support you."
Absolutely.
There is a question here from, where is Martha? Oh gosh, I just lost her. I'm sorry. If you have another one, go ahead. I'm going to try to find her. She had a good question.
Okay, sure. Uh, Susan Peretti says, "Hi, Susan. By the way, hi. Can the angels help you? Hold on. Help you clear karma by guiding you into situations that give you the opportunity to learn and repair." First of all, I love how you put that. That's a really good way uh, of seeing that. Uh, yeah, but remember, angels aren't really like always mission control. I always joke that you have one angel that's sort of mission control, but it's not as if they're just like purposely sort of manipulating situations in your life. They're gently putting them there, right? So essentially, I think what I'm getting at and the feeling that I get is really would be up to the person to make the choice and the intention to heed the guidance to clear the karma. Okay. And we can get into a whole discussion about karma, but maybe that would take all night. George, did you find your question or do you want to comment on this one?
No, it was a great answer. I really don't have anything to add. This is from Martha. Great question. Can our own guardian angels communicate with other people's guardian angels? Example, my guardian angels talking to my mother's guardian angels. The answer is yes, absolutely.
100%. It's actually how
Situation,
a lot of this work goes, is talking to angels, talking to one another, and then through us.
yes, the situations where I find that is most helpful is in my own life. I've asked my guardian angel to communicate with a guardian angel of someone that might be a bit challenging. And if we were to, let's say, try to meet in person or discuss a situation, that conversation might make things worse. So, in those kinds of situations, communicating a guardian angel to guardian angel can be very, very powerful and very effective. So, the short answer is yes, absolutely.
Okay, let's see what Sarah James has to say here. Do you think humanity is trying to elevate itself and people are more open to the spiritual side of things? George, you want to take that one?
Oh, sure. Give me the toughest one of the evening. um, can you read it again, please?
Sure, absolutely. Do you think humanity is trying to elevate itself and people are more open to the spiritual side of things?
Absolutely. Even though it might seem like we're going backwards right now, there is so much good in the world. My work as an activist has put me in touch with circles of people here and in other countries that really encourages me to know that there is so much good going on behind the scenes. Unfortunately, it's not being covered in the news, so we don't hear about it. But I feel absolutely that we are growing, changing, and evolving. And it gives me hope. I don't feel we're done yet. We need to help awaken as many people as we can, help to share, educate people about the angels, about making positive changes here on the earth on grassroots level. It's all important. But yes, I'm encouraged every day.
That's a perfect answer. I love that. All right. So, do we want to take maybe just one more question and then we'll
Sure.
kind of leave it? Do you want to pick it, George?
If you find something, you jump in. I'm scrolling through.
Okay, same here. All right, guys.
Here's one from John.
Okay.
Can you speak of acceptance when it appears God or the angels do not hear our prayers?
Hmm, that's a big one. Do you want me to take it or do you want to?
Sure, go ahead, Michelle.
When we think that God, well, first of all, God, source creator, whatever you call it, the angels, they always hear you. They always hear you. If you are not getting the answer that you expect, you might say, they're not hearing my prayers. there might be something there that either you're not seeing, okay, so you're not picking up on the guidance, or there's a not accepting a truth. That can be a big one for a lot of people. Let's say somebody is trying to be a writer and they keep writing and writing and writing, and they're measuring their success by whether a publishing house wants to publish them. The very act of creating is very angelic. It's higher frequency energy. So ultimately, the validation that comes from that doesn't really matter. But if you're somebody who says, "I prayed to have my book published and nobody will publish it, therefore my prayers are not answered," it's not exactly true. You might be getting the lesson of just appreciating your art and what you do for yourself in that artistic activity, right? And raising that frequency and not leaning so much on external validation, maybe, just as an example. George, what would you say to that?
One of the things I've experienced, John, over the years is that very often people, when they pray, whether it be God or the angels, and put out a request, they will have an expectation that I want it to happen in this way, in this colored wrapping, on thus and such a date. And so if you have any of that in your heart or your mind, I would encourage you to let go of how and when it's going to happen. And if there are any vestiges that you have of anger towards God or the angels, the universe at large, about not coming through, examine that and do what you can to let that go. That process of forgiveness is a really important step along the way in making that connection with our spiritual allies. Okay, so I hope that's a help to you.
That is such a beautiful, beautiful way of putting it. George, do you have any other final thoughts? Anything else you want to say here as we were getting ready to sign off?
Never buy retail. That's my advice.
Oh, I love these gems of wisdom. And you know what? Super valuable. All right, guys, I just want to say thank you all so much. And George, it's always a pleasure. I swear you and I could probably hang out for hours just hanging out.
We've got to do it, Michelle. Thank you so much for inviting me. And thank you to all of the people that tuned in tonight. Sending you much love and many, many blessings.
Absolutely. Much love to everybody. Again, thank you so much for tuning in, and take care.